Hey, what's up, guys? Okay, so today is the 3rd, and I am starting very late. I had an appointment and stuff, so went to the gym after because I was like feeling tired to try to wake myself up. So let's pick up where we left off last session, which was 371 in client file. We were finished creating the final pass for the receive, verify, apply order integrity, and player DC reconnect issues, and we began writing code for this in accordance with the outline. Yeah, so we stopped at 371. So let's pick up there. So what exactly are we going to implement though? So 371. Let's put client refactor over here. Okay, so let's add this to the refactor because we should have did that in the refactor, but we didn't. So let's see, what exactly do we have going on here that we added? Okay, this is right. Okay, so we wanted to do two separate sets of things. One is for if they reconnect, one if they are connecting for the first time. So we'll go all the way up to the try. And after this connection is made, put this div, and then now we'll see if reconnect. If reconnect is equal to false, because reconnects are probably kind of rare. So we'd put that first. So in this case, we would just this. Yeah. Just the ready if ready. Well, yeah, we check that again later down here for in the while true. This is not in the while true. This is just an initial section that gets run. Okay, so this means we need to pass. We need to create the reconnect arg. This is not a function, so it doesn't quite work like that. Okay, so how would we do this? So what we could do is have a connect num so that during connect we would increment the connect num to 1, and if the connect num was greater than 1, we would know that it's a reconnect. So we could say self dot, or we could just say well, we do have to determine which we do have to determine like which one is connecting, if it's client 1 or client 2, because if we just said self dot connect num plus equals 1, you know, then it would equal 2 for the second time connect was run. But since the two clients are like not actually connected, wouldn't that actually work? Since the clients are independent, then that means, you know, their instance of network is independent, which means they can they can increment the connect num locally, and in each locality it would only be 1 instead of being incremented twice, once for each connect. Yeah, that sounds good to me. I think that would work. So we could either have an attribute called like connect num, or it could be just called, we could just call reconnect. And I think reconnect is like more precise in its descriptive naming. Like it's just more descriptive. So yeah, what is it? Reconnect. So we would just say self.reconnect is true or false, but then we would have to pass that in as a parameter. Otherwise we would just like set n.reconnect equal to true beforehand, and I think like it's, I don't know, I think it's more quote-unquote Pythonic. I'm not really sure about that. I think it's more like preferred to just pass it in as an argument. Yeah, I think so. So we'll just do this. We'll say reconnect, and then equals, by default it will equal false, and well, if we did that though, that actually wouldn't fix anything. Yeah, because we can only return one thing. So in this case, like, I suppose we would just change the attribute. We would just say self.reconnect equals, well, no, like that that wouldn't even happen here. Well, then in that case, you know, should I even make it a network thing? No, I should just make it a I mean, because connect doesn't handle the logic. You know, technically I could like move this to a network, but I'm not doing that. It belongs here. So we would have to have so here's one way that we could do this. We could say whenever we reconnect from a disconnect, because this is just attached to the script, it's not attached to like a function or a class or anything. So this just gets run every time the client file gets run, which means there's no real way to like trigger this reconnect logic like we would have to, we couldn't change a client attribute because it's not referencing any client. So yeah, actually I do think like we would have to, we would pass whenever we called connect upon the reconnect, not this one, but on the other one, wherever that is exactly, that would actually be yeah, see, there's a string of logic that we would have to execute. So we should start at the beginning, because this is not actually the beginning. But I think what we would end up doing is say need to add more logic for this to work. So it would start at actual disconnect point, and then whenever n.connect is called, whenever n.connect is called, either pass the reconnect arg as true, which would trigger the n.reconnect adder equal to true, Oops. Or better option would be to just set the n.reconnect adder equal to true directly prior to connect call. This will, let's see, this will trigger, or rather this below line will check to see if n dot reconnect is equal to true. If n.reconnect is equal to true. Yeah, so then, yeah, that's really simple. I think that would work. So we would just say if n.reconnect is equal to false, which is the more likely option, and this will say if first time connecting not reconnect. Okay, and then we go down here to the else. Well, we don't really need an else, actually. Do we? Why would we need an else? Oh, well, wait, we don't want to recreate the ink timestamp list. Why did that get put there? Yeah, we definitely don't want to reassign the ink timestamp list because that might actually be populated. Okay, well, it couldn't be populated because the it's not attached to the client object. So what we would need to do is attach that to the client object, and I think I meant to do this. I just never actually did. So let's pull that out of the if reconnect is equal to false, because we don't want to reassign that. And honestly, convert to class or instance adder. Otherwise will be reassigned upon reconnect, which will cause data loss. Yeah, that sounds right. Okay, so try if reconnect is equal to false. and yeah, this is not, so this is correct, but I'm gonna convert this. Just want to see real quick all the places that it's used. Okay, so for toop and receive change attribute list, then we create the ink timestamp list, and the ink timestamp list stores all of the received change attribute lists and then organizes them. We're actually gonna end up changing the name of this as well. This is it's gonna be changed because we're not gonna go off of the timestamp. We're gonna be going off of a counter instead, which is just as precise as far as, you know, like, it's orderly. It's actually gonna make it more orderly. Looks like my link is loading. Let's see if my link is gonna work. Okay, it's working. Cool. Okay, so for toop and receive change attribute list, alright, yeah, so we're definitely going to convert this to be an instance attribute because there's no reason not to. Yeah, there's every reason to have it be an instance object, instance attribute. Yep, so let's just go ahead and do that. There it is. Alright, so let's grab this and let's move this up to the top. Okay, so this is going to be the ink timestamp list, which is, we're gonna change the name of this. See what I did? Let's put it alphabetically, so we'll put it here. Alright, so this is going to be self.ink timestamp list now. And it's a compilation list of all received change. Okay, yeah, so it's going to be, I guess I'll leave it as is now, just until like I'm positive that so this is gonna be change ink timestamp list to ink. Well, we are actually going to receive timestamps, but we could really just call this the... Couldn't we just call this the ink data list? Isn't that like more accurate as to what it does? I'm pretty sure that's a more accurate description. So for each item in the received change attribute list, and the received change attribute list is I was worried about us losing that too. Like upon disconnect, if we were to disconnect and come back, receive change attribute list wouldn't actually be. Well, hold up now. Think about this. If we disconnected, if the client disconnected, does that even? And then they reconnected. Like the client object is going to be lost. Like all that data is going to be lost on the client side. So it wouldn't actually matter if it was a client attribute or just a local variable, because in both instances the data would just be completely lost. Isn't that right? Pretty sure that's true. Because I mean, it's not like saved outside of the file, unless we were to like transfer it back over, but that's a completely different thing. So it actually doesn't matter if it's an instance attribute in that regard, but it does need to be an instance attribute for, like, it just should be, you know? I feel like it just should be. So, but we wouldn't reference it in terms of client. It would be like, I mean, we wouldn't reference it in terms of self. We would reference it in terms of current client. Yeah, because like I said, this is not inside like an initializer or anything like that, or a function. Okay, so get my little snack on. I'm hungry. I didn't eat anything when I came back from the gym. I think I need to. Should have made a little sandwich. Okay. So, a little bit, like, not a little bit unnecessary doing this actually, but so it's a compilation list of all received change. Yeah, I don't see a reason not to have it as an instance attribute. Yeah, I think, you know, it just makes sense to do it like that. So we'll leave it as is. Now, what we also need, we're gonna go ahead and yeah, let's go ahead and change the name of this from Inc timestamp list to just Inc data list. I think that's more precise. Yeah, Inc data list. Because it stores all the data, and it's a list of data. So yeah, that makes sense to me. I know I was gonna put off changing the name, but like I'm pretty certain that the change is gonna stand, you know, like it's gonna be a final change. So yeah. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're gonna do Control F. We're gonna paste in ink timestamp list, and we also are gonna have to add like current client in front of it. So this is gonna be called ink data list. Yeah. So we're gonna replace that. But this is the received data list. It's not ink, it's actually received, because we made a we distinguish between ink and receive. Ink means like it's being received. Received means like we have received it and unserialized it. So I would actually prefer to call this the received data list. Okay. Did that, I must have or click that somehow. Defined in selection. Okay. So ink timestamp list is going to be renamed to received data tup list, or just received data list. So really we could call it the received CAL tuple list, because it's a list of the tuples from the change attribute list. That is actually the most like precise naming. I think that's the best one. So you say received CAL for change attribute list tup list, received custom change attribute list tuple list, because it's a list but it's consisting of tuples from the change attribute list that was received. Yeah, so that's the final name for it. So let's go ahead and change that. Okay, so now this is going to be the current client. Oh, but wait a second. Well, no, just thinking. Well, yeah, it's still the same client that we're dealing with. Like I was thinking, well, we received from the other client. But that doesn't mean like we wouldn't append the received data to the current client's data list. Yeah. So yeah, we're good on that. We have to reference current client though, because we can't just access it as if it were a local variable, because it's not. It's connected to current client because it's now a client attribute. Yep. So let's make this change. We're gonna put current client dot, and then we'll make the change. Current client dot received cal tup list. Bam. was just trying to think if that would cause any issues. I don't think it would. So ink timestamp list is gonna be changed to current client dot received cal tube list. Current client dot received cal tube list. It's kind of it's not as catchy as ink timestamp list, but it's more precise. You know, it is what it is. Yeah, and this is gonna be changed anyway. Yeah, this logic's gonna be like redone. So, but you know, we'll just do one thing at a time. But like this logic's not even gonna exist anymore. Client dot receive cal tube list, and yeah, so this also. And here we do need to add current client dot and there we go. Alright, okay, there we go. Okay, so now we can go ahead and what's the next thing? I don't want to like scatter, be all scattered. I would rather think about what I'm gonna do next instead of just remembering like, oh yeah, I was gonna do this. Oh yeah, I was gonna do this. Because I think I have everything like written down, so I'm not just gonna forget all of a sudden, you know, like something really important. I think what we could do is we could just go ahead and change that logic associated with the ink timestamp list that we just turned into the received cal tube list. Taking off my shoes. Things were on way too tight. So let's do that. So there's no more instances in client client refactor rather. Yeah, so this I can get to that. Let's go ahead and change that timestamp list logic. Alright. Well, actually, if we want to go in order, we should start at the beginning of the process. And the beginning of the process is actually, let's see, the beginning of the process would be this is the receive order integrity. So we created the data change apply counter in change attribute list and added logic for it to be incremented by +1 every time the data transfer function is called. This will replace the timestamp, except time tube timestamping. That is still required. The counter will always be incremented by +1 and will not allow data application unless integer directly precedes the previously apply counter integer. So to do, finish replacing all timestamp logic with apply counter. Yeah, so okay, so we created and that's where it starts, in change attribute list. So we can close this out and let's open up change attribute list. And we have the so we're referencing the global data change apply counter, and that's created up here. It starts off at 0, and every time we use this function, the data transfer function, which means anytime either the I didn't consider this about like how does it work for like sending like from the client side, because okay, so from the server side, when we increment, we're going to increment it each time we call this function, and that's anytime that we are making a data point change that's going to be transferred. That always happens in the main thread, and we can verify that by Control-Shift-F and right, yeah, this is not called from the client thread because it's only if self change from dirCheck is equal to false and card data transfer is equal to true. In most all cases, it's just if self change from dirCheck is equal to false, and that means like the client thread handles receiving and sending data. In the case that we were setting X here, the only place that we would be setting X would be was from the main thread, whenever we actually called append on a card or whatever, through the progression loop logic, and the other case would be if we received an X value change from the client. But in this case, change from dirCheck would equal true, so it would not do this. So that would only happen on the main thread. And that was the concern, was if we modify the counter from multiple threads, then we need to put a lock on it. But I'm pretty sure we don't do that. I'm pretty sure we only modify it from the main thread. And I was like, I could just add the lock because the overhead is virtually 0, but it's just why would I do that if I don't need it? So let's just go ahead and make sure. So yeah, that we're safe here, safe on this one. Okay, so this is the actual data transfer function. And yeah, so this is inside of append, and this is, as you can see right here, change from dirCheck is equal to false. So this is not going to happen through the client thread, because the client thread would receive this data, but change from dirCheck would be true in that case. And then if it was sending the data, it wouldn't actually be calling the append function. Like, you know, it doesn't work like that. So safe, and so all this is also going to be safe. Change check. Change check false. Yep. Change check false. Yep. So we're good. Same thing here. Yep. Okay, yeah, so we would fall into this elif right here, so we're safe there as well. Yeah, that's the same section. Doofus, just keep going. Okay. Change your ticket to false. Safe, 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 and safe as well. Safe, safe, and safe. Whoa, wait. Okay, yeah, safe as well. Okay. Custom time, yep, safe, and safe. All right. So this setter would. Okay, yeah. So we have logic, but it's coded differently. Yeah. If val is equal to tuple, retain from check receive to avoid circular pin. Correct. In this case, we would it would go else because it would not change from dir check. If it was changed from dir check, it would type of val would be tuple, and we wouldn't run the data transfer function. So safe there as well. Same thing here. Safe, 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 safe again, safe again, safe as well. Definitely two. Yep. Safe, safe, and safe. Safe again. Yep. Okay, now this. Let's see. What about this? Okay, so this is for only if event type game mouse button down self multiple choice active true. So this would only happen on the actual client side. This would only be transferred from the client side to the server side, and in that case we don't well, and that's a question that I do need to answer. I need to put this on things to do. Let's see. Alright. So, consider logic for counter concerning whenever sending from client side. Like, what would the number be? Because we're gonna have the counter on. Let me make sure I'm marked where I left off. Okay, yeah, so it's still highlighted. So like, if we So if we're sending from the client side, let's see, the value, what would it be? What would the counter be? Well, so didn't like okay, so I thought this through, and I'm pretty sure I figured out that let's start with the server side. So when we send from server side, the counter is going to start at 0. The first time we make a data point change is going to increase to 1 when it appends that data to the associated change attribute list, and it's going to attach that value 1 for the apply counter to the change attribute list tuple. And since every data point change, and this is the big question, this determines whether or not this works or not, is if every single data point that is made and transferred is transferred to both clients, then that means the application of the data, aka the order of it, should be identical for both clients. So on the server side, if we make changes to the client 1 or player 1 first, and then we make changes to player 2 second, both clients would be expecting the same apply counter value, because we would send the player 1 and player 2 change to client 1, and then we would send the player 1 and player 2 change to client 2, and both of those changes would each have the associated apply counter value of 1 and 2 if they were the first and second changes made in the game. And yeah, so like as long as we apply every single change to both clients, then we can do this. If we don't apply every single change, then we wouldn't be able to do that, because in that case we would have to have like 2 counters. We would have to have like a counter for everything that's sent to client 1, and then a counter for everything that's sent to client 2, and those counters would be different because, you know, the data that they receive would be different. But like I'm quite certain, I just like can't pinpoint exactly, I'm almost positive though that we always, because that was a question we had earlier in development, was should we send all the data, even like the other game's changes that really have like that the current game doesn't care about, like it's not going to affect the current game because the other game changes are just irrelevant to it. It's so on the one hand, you could say we don't need to send useless data, right? Like that's definitely an agreed principle. We don't want to just send stuff that's junk. So that's actually a key question here, is like, before I go all the way through with this, is I have to ensure that if I do this, that I want to send some junk data, or maybe it's not actually junk data. Maybe the game attributes and stuff that I'm thinking about might be used, but no, that's not actually true. Like, for instance, the other game's progression text will never appear on the current game, on the current client screen. That is junk data. So, like, okay, here's the question. Should we just send the junk data that doesn't get used, or should we clean that system up to where we don't send any junk data, aka we wouldn't send any any change made in terms of other game. But I don't know, like, so here's the thing. The issue with that is we don't send in terms of current game changes, other game changes. We strictly send in terms of has it been changed? Like, well, but since we're changing from the perspective of the current client, wouldn't that, like, take care of that issue? See, this would require, and it's always more work, isn't it? I mean, I could just send the junk data, and it really is not a big deal, and that would make it a lot more simple. But like, I'm like a perfectionist, whatever. Like, I don't like inefficiency. I don't like junk. It is just antithetical to my, principles, whatever you want to call them. So, and here I am creating more work for myself. I'm just like, damn it, I could just made it easy. So in the case where if I really wanted to do it the right way, like 100% correct, I would probably have to, sorry, let's write this down. I would probably have to not send junk data, i.e. other game data, other game changes, and this would, so here we go. Let's say option number one, lazy option would be to all data point changes everywhere are always sent identically to both clients, i.e. sending other game data to clients that they'll never use. Or option 2 is going to be the non-lazy option. I mean, I don't know what you call it. The proper, like the proper fix option would be to not send, well, let me just copy this. can modify this a little bit. Say not send junk data, i.e. other game changes. Not send junk data. Okay. And that would mean resulting with identical apply counter for both clients. Easy solution. Now option 2, and I'm pretty sure we could say like current state of data exchange implementation. That's like what it is right now. And then option 2 is proper fix option, not sending junk data. This would resulting in different apply counter values for each client. Isn't that true, right? Because if we just upped the counter, if we only had one counter and we upped that counter every time we made a data point change that was transferred, and we sent, but we didn't send like all of those changes. Let's say we make 10 changes, the first 10 changes. Let's say 3 of those changes are relative to the other client, other game changes, which are useless junk data. And so in that change attribute list that we have packaged, and we're now going to send from the server client 1 thread to the client 1, and then we're also going to go to send it to client 2. So now all 10 of those entries are going to have an apply counter value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And in the client 2's change attribute list version, we're not just going to send it with all 10. We would nix those 3 that are terms of other client, and that would make it so the client 2 would receive 7 of those 10, and let's just say those 3 changes was like the 2nd, the 5th, and the 7th. So on client 2's apply counter expectation, it wouldn't be able to just go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It would have to go 0, 1, 3, 4, 6, 8. You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't work, because the whole logic, like the whole driving logic behind the system is that the client is only going to apply the next in line data point change. So if there's only one counter and you're nixing data for one of the clients before you send it, it's gonna destroy the integrity of the count. It's not gonna work. So in that case, if we did the proper fix option, that means we would have to get this shit out of here. Get this shit out of here. Alright. Different apply counter values for each client. So if we were gonna have 2, how exactly would that work? So that would work like if you're making, okay, so if you're making a, let's just say P1 game change, then only increment the like client 1 counter, right? Yeah, so that would result in, if we made the P1 game change, then we incremented the client 1 counter, but didn't increment the client 2 counter, because like we're not gonna send that to the client 2. Okay, but now I'm seeing like a better, possibly a better solution. Like, so we may still have to have 2 separate counters. But I was thinking, like, should we have then like 2 subsets of like lists, like 2 change attribute lists, to where instead of creating 1 change attribute list and then removing some of them when we go to send it to the other client, wouldn't it be like better, or would it be, maybe it would be more efficient to just delete a few entries as opposed to like appending to 2 lists? See what I'm saying? Like, so then we would have to add in logic. Basically that would check, like, if this is a if this is a game change, then if this is a P1 game change, only append to, and this logic would fall within the change attribute list, like right in this data in the data transfer function. I think we'd basically say if game object is equal to P1, then only append these changes to the client 1 changed attribute list, and then not append to the client 2 change attribute list, and then increment the client 1 counter, obviously not incrementing the client 2's counter, and then whenever you go to send the data, it would only send the client 1 list to the client that it's associated with, client 1, which could contain, let's just say, all 10 data point changes. But then the let's say in the case of the other 7 changes that do need to be transmitted to both clients, like the player.hand, the player's hand being changed, obviously both clients need to see that. In that case, in this function, well, okay, so actually we would have to check the game attribute. Like, we would have to check the attribute itself, like the adder name. And so basically we'd have to have a list of game attribute names, and then we would check to see, is it in this list. If it's not in the list, then apply it to both the client 1 and client 2 change attribute list. So basically you have two lists, and one of them is gonna go to client, the associated client. Let's just say client 1 for, you know, one-to-one, just as the example. Client 1 is always going to send everything because that is from the perspective of the client itself, its current client. And the client 2 change attribute list is going to be the, or we'll say the other client, other client change attribute list would contain only the data that the other client actually needs. So instead of just having one list that we filter, we have two lists that we sometimes append, like we determine if we're going to append to both of them. Now, the question is, would it be more performant to have the two lists and check the logic? Like, it would really just be one line in here. It would just be if cal2 at index 1, which is the adder name, is equal to or is in the list of game attributes, then don't send it. Otherwise, that means if it is in the game. I don't like that. Don't like it. Yeah, so if it is associated with the game object, if it's a game object attribute, do not send it, or append it rather, to both lists, the C1 and C2, or current and other. We can just call current change attribute list and other attribute list. So it'd be one line. The only difference would be we would have one that if statement, and having the two lists. And then whenever we went to send the list, we would obviously only send in terms of current client to the current client, and then we would send the other client change attribute list to the other client, which would not have, would not have a messed up counter. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Everything, it would be proper, and there would be no junk data. So let's see. What about performance-wise, like comparatively with the other option? If we just had the one list and we filtered it, we would end up having to iterate through the list and do an if statement on each one, after we sent it to the current client. We would have to, so we send it to the current client, and then we have to grab it and filter out the ones that don't need to be, which means if they're a game object attribute, then so yeah, it's basically the same logic, isn't it? It's one if statement and removal versus addition. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. It's both one if statement, but the difference is, and it's same thing. For one of them you're iterating through the list, but the other one you're just doing it one at a time as they come, so you're still running it the same amount of times. And then as far as the addition to the list versus removal, I think the performance is probably about the same. I don't know, it might be somewhat different as far as append, pop, remove, whatever, or delete. I think they're probably pretty similar in speed to where like I wouldn't worry about that. Um, so actually, in the former case where you had two separate lists instead of the other option, which would be to filter the one list, you would actually make double the operations. You would append twice. Some of the times, like lots of the time, like I don't know. You would make double appends. Let's just say half of the time. Um, so that's actually like doubling the time that it would take you. So unless pop or remove was half as fast as append, then I couldn't make a reason. I couldn't justify doing it that way. Um, because that also is a little bit more complicated, and when performance is basically the same, it's always better to be simple. Yeah, so in that case, after doing the brainstorm and the thought experiment with it, I think that the better option would be to just have the one list that we currently have and add everything to it, and right before we sent to the other client, we would filter it out. Yeah, I think that's good. Like we said, they're both one if. The only difference is double append versus one remove. We do iterate through the entire list, but we're still going to be running the if on everyone in the other, every data change, which is the same thing as iterating through the list. Yeah. Okay, so I made that decision. We're not going to. We're relaying a different reply counter if you make a P1 argument, commit the client one counter. Oh, but that's the problem, right? Because how do we determine the counter? How do we determine the counter value? Like, well, that could be handled, couldn't it? Yeah, we. Oh, hold up. Damn. Okay, so considering the fact that if we did that system, which is I think the proper system, which is probably what I would do, is this option 2, is to not send the junk data. That means one, we're either gonna filter them out, or two, we're gonna have the two lists and not filter them out. Now I said that not filtering them out, or filtering them out, is a better option, probably because it's more simple and it doesn't require two actions, it just requires one. But the problem with that one is we still have to check if that attribute name is associated with the game object, because if it is, then that means we would only increment the associated apply counter, not the other one, not the other client's apply counter. But again, I think so. Then the question is it better to have what? Uh-huh. No. Okay. No. Sorry. Voldemort. Don't like it. Okay, so I'm gonna take a little break. I think it's time. Oh yeah, it's over. It's over. It's well over the. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a little break, and I'll be back in like 5-10 minutes. And this is headache, man. I hate not actually coding and just like brainstorming. It's like why don't I just finish this project, dude? But you know, I do want to do it right, so fuck. Whatever. I don't want to lose my train of thought though when I go to break. What exactly was I considering? Okay, yeah. So basically, it was. Let's write this down. Then I'm gonna go to take a break. And so option 1 is have filter 1 list, and that means you have to still run if in game, or if game matter, would you say if game matter, and then you also have to run the filter logic, as opposed to option 2 is 2 lists. That means you have the if game matter, and then you have the remove logic. Or no, sorry, not remove. The double append. Double append. So we'll say filter. This is gonna be like remove logic. So remove 1x, and then if game matter, and then 2x append. So basically we have the if game matter is going to happen on both of them. The difference would be, do we want remove 1x logic or 2x append logic? Let me ask ChatGPT if let's see, Python is append so append would have to be twice as fast as remove for it to be better. Isn't that right? Append would have to be 2 times faster than remove for it to be viable. Is append 2x faster than remove or pop? Speed of operation can depend on various factors such as size, list, position. It's true that append operation tends to be faster than remove or pop, especially for large lists. This is because append typically involves adding an element to the end of a list, which can be done efficiently in constant time 01 on average. On the other hand, remove and pop meaning to search through the list and to find an element to be removed or pop, which can take linear time, O of n on average, where n is the size of the list. Therefore, for larger lists, remove and pop operations may take longer compared to append. However, it's important to know that these are general trends, and the actual performance can vary depending on the specific circumstances and the Python implementation being used. For critical performance optimization, it's always a good idea to measure and profile the code using tools like Timeit. Okay. Yeah, so we could quickly run a Timeit test, but it actually might be better to do the two lists, but I just don't know if there's gonna be like issues associated with that. Like, if like that means I have to add in a lot more logic elsewhere, that's what needs to be considered. So basically, it's gonna come down to probably is is this option going to cause me to have to add in more logic to distinguish between these two lists? If so, use the other option, because that's gonna offset dramatically any, relative gains that you made by 2x append being faster than remove, which I really don't think faster. I'm hoping it's not 2 times faster because I want to just use one list. Anyway, I'm gonna go take a little break. I'll be back. Okay. I'm back. All right. What does we have going on here? Okay. Okay. So that's the question. Like, really, we're being petty here, but is this option going to cause me to have to add in more logic to distinguish between the two lists? So that's the question. Let me think about this for a second. Like, so I don't think there would actually be any more added logic, right? Wouldn't I just send the wouldn't I just send the current change attribute list to the current client and then the other change attribute list to the other client, and that's it? Yeah. This where's the client refactor? What happened to that one? There it is. Okay. Isn't that where we were working? Weren't we working in client refactor? Or did I start working in client like an idiot? Is that what I did? No, I didn't. Okay. I didn't work at all in server refactor. Okay, why was client refactor closed though? I'm confused. Alright, so if we did send, let's look at the actual logic here. Well, that's actually in server. So let's see. Let's go up here. Okay, yeah, I don't need to see all that. No, not for receive, for send. And not the apply. Okay, where's the beginning of send? Start send. Okay, there we go. Current client ID is equal to 1. Got like use of home. So, alright, so we would have to handle, like right here, if we had two lists, we would have current client change attribute list. Like we would have two. We would have current change attribute list equals C1 if that was the associated one, and then we would also have current client other change attribute list, and that one would be the that would be the C2 change attribute list. Is that right? No, 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 no. It would depend on the ID. It would depend on the ID, of course. Shit, get it. Oh. Alright. So it would be dependent on the ID, obviously. It would say current client, current change attribute list equals C1, and then we would say current client other change attribute list equals C2 change attribute list. Isn't that right then? Well, no, no. See, that's the thing. We don't want to have I've confused myself here. Current client change attribute list. Okay, so this is just assigning the change attribute list to C1 change attribute list copy. All right. Now, would that be different with the system I'm proposing? Well, so then we would have to have a C1 current changed and then a C1 other. Is that right? So that like we would always append, you know, C1, because what ends up happening is, let me just fast forward. I'm having trouble with that grasping. Current client change attribute list is 2. Right. Check. Well, see, we would also have to run. We would have to run dirt check on it twice, wouldn't we? We would have to do all this twice because we would be operating on yeah, on 2 lists. I mean, I don't really see a way around that because we'd have to run dirt check on it. So if we had 2 lists instead of just 1 change attribute list, yeah, we'd have to do all this twice. So that's stupid. We're not gonna do that. That's definitely not a better option. Cool. I'm glad because it's more complicated too. Okay. Cool. Isn't that nice? All right. Dodge the bullet there. So get that shit out of here. We don't want to do that. We are going to just filter 1 list, which is praise the Lord. Less work. Sweet. Alright. So if you're making P1 game change, only increment the client 1 counter and then just else increment both counters. And then we'll put requires filtering change attribute list. After current client send and before other client's end. Yeah, and this would result in the counts being the same, not the same, like correct. They would be the correct values. They would match on, like, you know, 1-to-1. But wait, how? But that means we would have to. Wait a second though, because concerning the counter, this isn't a complete fix, is it? It's not. Because the... Alright. So whenever we increment the counter, what actually is happening is we're appending that data, the counter value, to the change attribute list tuple, just like we did with the timestamp at the time of the data point change, when the function's being called from the change attribute list, what's called data transfer function. So at that point in time, if we did this method and let's say we're gonna transfer some game data, this P1 game, that means we're only gonna want to increment the associated client's counter. And remember, we said that the counters don't have to be thread safe because they're only modified through the main thread. But that means the counter for current client would go up to 1. Let's just say it was the first change in the game, and the client 2's counter would remain at 0. When we attach the counter to that tuple entry in the change attribute list, that means that would work fine, because that get filtered out for the other client, and the other client's counter would remain at 0. The current client's counter would be at 1, which is correct. It's what it would be expecting. And but then, if we made a change, subsequent change to, let's say, the player 1's hand, that would need to go to both of them. So then we would increment the current client counter by 1 and the other client counter by 2, which would give us 2 and 1. Like, which one do you attach to the change attribute list tuple? Because you can only attach 1. Or, like, well, we don't have to only attach 1, but, like, you know, would we only attach 1? We couldn't attach 1, because if we attached the 2 value, then it wouldn't be proper on the I think, like, we could use a calculation way to, like, to calculate how many packets it's missed out, but that's silly. We don't need to do that. It would make more sense to just have 2 counters, the 2 counters, and whenever whenever we make the data point change, we would simply append both counter values to the change attribute list. But then the question is, okay, well, if you had both of them, how does the other side, the client, know which one to use? How does it know, like, so we could couldn't we do the current one first and then the other one second? Wouldn't that be so let's say we did the current first, then we did other, so then we send it over, and on the receiving side for client 1, it's going to like recognize it. We'd have to have logic for that to check, to say to check check what it would recognize if it was the current client or the other client, like associated wise. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's one option, is to determine like that, because then relative to the other client, when it received it, it would know that it was the other client. So in that case, whenever it went to go apply that tuples data change, it would reference the second counter, because the second is for other. Yeah, I feel like that would work. So I feel like I need to write this down. I was filtering changes for this after current clients end and before other clients end, and we would, let's figure out how to word this. Append both. This is actually not a subset of that, it's just its own thing. Append requires appending both current counter and other counter to change at this tuple. 2.0, can't type at all. First would be referring to current, second referring to other, and it would just receiving logic would dictate if current or other, or which counter val to use. And that's like no big deal at all. That's very easy to accomplish. But I was concerned about other like logic, like what exactly? I was concerned about. Was the other logic that I was concerned about? Oh, okay. About like if one, like from the perspective of the multi-thread. So if like one thread, well, one thread is always going to see the number one client as current and the two as the other, and then the other thread is always going to see two as the current and one as the other. Um, so but wait, doesn't, okay, yeah, so that wouldn't actually work because it would be switched like from thread one. If it was sending to current, if it was a pending data associated with current, it would put the current counter first, the other counter second. But then when it's sent um, to the other client, oh, hold up, I'm confused myself. Um, might be better to draw illustration with this one. No, just think carefully. So client one, it's current, let's just say it's one, and then, or we'll say two is the value, and then for the other client, counter value is going to be one. So then it goes to send it to client one, and then it goes to send it to client two. When client one receives it, it's going to say, hey, this is coming from my associated current client. So we're going to go with the first value, which is going to be 2. And then client 2 is going to say, okay, this is coming from in terms of other client. So I'm going to use the second value, which is 1. And that would be correct. But, like, would that be switched from, like, the other thread's perspective? If the other thread put its, like, a current first, in that case, it would put 2 first, and then 1 second. That would work. Yeah, that would work. Sure, that would work. I feel like I should do like a little MS Paint thing, but I don't even think my computer has Paint anymore. Something happened. It shows this. Oh, okay, so it does. It works. All right, let's do this. So we have. Let's make some little boxes here. We have. It's gonna be the client 1 thread change. This will be the client 2 thread change. Now we have the receiving side. Actually, let's try to do this a little different. We're gonna have this data change, and then this one's gonna get sent to client 1, so it's gonna be in terms of current, and then we have this data change, which is gonna be sent. How did that happen? Red. Then we have blue. Bro, am I tripping right now? It totally changed the color of this one when I clicked blue. Okay, I see why. I'm an idiot. That's okay. Now, current and then current for client. And then we have this one is other. And then this one would be other. So, let's see. Then we have, so let's make this way smaller. Alright, so now we have, let's say 1 and then 2. Or it would actually be the other way, because this is client 1. Let's say it already sent 1, so for client 1, current client perspective, this would be the 2 counter. And then on the receiving side, it's going to say, hey, this is my associated client. So I am totally gonna smaller font. I'm gonna think that I should use 2, which is correct. And then he's gonna think the other client, or rather down here, the other client is gonna think, hey, I actually see this in terms of the other client, so I'm gonna use 1. And now if the other don't like it. Yeah, so if the other thread made a subsequent change right after, for them it would be 2 and then 2. Okay. Then we go over here, and it's going to say, well, let's make it to where the numbers are different to be the same, because that's like a cheat. So say 2 and then just 3. I don't know how that actually. No, I'm pretty sure this would work, guys. Yeah, because this is going to be current, so it's going to look at 2, and then this one it's going to say is coming from the other, so it's going to look at the second one. Yeah, so this is right. This works. That's pretty sure that works. Because I was thinking we could just do, I guess a better way to do it would just be to have the first one be for client 1, and then the second one be for client 2. So like, it doesn't vary based on current or other. It goes off of just 1 or 2, the ID. And honestly, I don't know. It depends, like, which one requires less logic, but it also matters about like how easy it is to remember too, isn't it? Because you don't want to just go with what's less logic or whatever. It's like, I don't know, weird and complicated, kind of like this. It's not that complicated, dude. It's pretty simple. Yeah, so we would receive we would have. Let's look. Let's not guess. Let's open up change attribute list, and we're gonna look at data change apply equals 1. Okay, why am I looking at that? That's not what we need to look at. So we could apply it as, let's go ahead and put this 2 because we're replacing that. We'll copy this, and this is going to be C1 and then C2. Sometimes you get and well, this would be, yeah, this would be a way to do it. Instead of doing it in terms of current versus other, we could just have a static setting, which would be, the first one would always be C1, second would always be C2, and as a matter of fact, I don't even know, like, from the perspective of the server side main thread, it wouldn't even have like an opinion. Well, no, it wouldn't. Yeah, the main thread wouldn't have an opinion of what was the current client because it's the main thread. So there is no technical current client relative to the main thread. So that actually wouldn't even be possible. So I'm an idiot for thinking that that was even a possibility. We would have to do it in terms of C1 change of flag. Yeah. True that. Alright, I am a doofus. But I think that I got this figured out. And now we'll we would send C1 change apply counter C2, and then when we received it, let's see. Well, let me just put a little note here. Always put C1 first, C2 second, and then on server side. Well, no, this is going to be client side. So then on client side, whenever we go to receive, let's see, yeah, we don't have to worry about this. That's what I was going to use, like logic like that, to determine current or other. But anyway, then the static way is like better. Alright, so right here we would actually be adding the C1 data counter and the C2 data counter, and then when we got to this right here, current client received cal2 plus append, we would have to we would add logic. Yeah, and like we said, we can't do it in terms of current client other client anyway because the main thread has no perspective of current client other client. So yeah, this is the way that we have to do it. So we have to add in a logic right here that would say, it would say if current client ID is equal to 1, then you're going to deal with the first one, which is the C1 counter. Yeah. So sometimes the C1 counter and the C2 counter is going to go up every data change, but when it's a game change, a game attribute change, either the one or the two is going to go up depending on if it's associated with P1 game or P2 game. And you know, so that counter would go up, and whenever we did the filtering thing, client 2 wouldn't get that one, so then its counter would be expected to be one lower. And then let's say next time it was vice versa, it was a P2 game change, so that one would go up to 1, and whenever that client received the data, it would say, hey, I'm client ID 2 and this is P2, so I'm expecting, I haven't received anything yet, so I'm expecting the counter to be 1, and the counter would be 1 because there's only been that one change. So I'm pretty sure, like, I hope, I kind of have this feeling of just like not being on top of it, you know what I mean? Like when you grasp something but you're not really fully grasping it, you can overlook things, and that's why it's very tempting to just not brainstorm like this and to just like code, but you know, like, it's just dumb because I don't know, unless you're a really smart high IQ person, like I'm not, I have to do it this way. If I were to just do, what do they call it, extreme go horse, and just write the code, I would have to refactor it. I would be like, oh shit, I can't actually do that, etc., etc. So yeah, the deal is, this is probably gonna work, and I think that's what we're gonna do. It's not like a lot more logic. Adding in, only have to add in like a few more lines, and then we can restructure like the system. Like we can finish restructuring this whole system. But I'm gonna just add, like, since I'm right here and since I already looked at this, like this line in particular, we're gonna comment that out, and we're gonna double comment it out, and then we're gonna have single replacement, and we're gonna say this is now gonna be 20, 21, 22, because it's gonna be timestamp, dir string. Well, it's not gonna be timestamp. It's gonna be see, the counter goes at the beginning. Oh, but we still need the timestamp, remember, because when we receive, we want to compare to make sure that we haven't had a local change that technically like happened after the prior, like the change that was made. I'm just thinking though, I'm like, does that actually make sense with the time stamping? It's a lot. It's a lot. Anyway, I'm not worried about, like, okay, one thing at a time. So on the issue of timestamp, the time to, whenever we do that, let's think about this for a second. this was an issue in the past. This was an issue in the past where we would have changes that were made changes that were made at an earlier, or rather at a later point in time on one side of the network, but then like we transfer them over the network, but by the time that data got transferred over the network, a later change and proper change was made, and instead of rejecting that earlier change, we would accept it. And that is problematic because, well, it would be incorrect. It's basically applying old data. So like if we just use the counter without using timestamps, and timetube, that's for things that are modified on both the client and server side. There's not a lot of them, but some of them are, and that means that when you modify it on the both sides, you have to check those timestamps to make sure that it's a later change. And I was just wondering, like, with the new counter system, would we still need the timetube timestamping? And I think that we would. Like even if, like, technically the counter would be right, it would be the first change, and the receiving client would be expecting the first change. But as to whether or not that first change was valid, as far as like the time stamping, should it actually be applied, because of network delays, like, it does happen. I remember dealing with that issue. I remember debugging that issue a long time ago. So yeah, that does happen, and I don't think that the counter system would actually change that at all. Yeah. So we still need them. Yeah, we still need the timestamp. I'm gonna go ahead and just say, yeah, we still need them. Now I'm gonna go ahead and call it quits here in a second, but one other thing I noticed here is I put this received data ID at the end, but I was wondering why the received data ID, what was that for? That was for received data. See, I should have put, why did I use received data ID? I know this lets me know. Okay, well this is probably for data application, so that we know, like, we know which object to change the data of. Yeah, because we pass in the, do we pass that in here, receive data ID? I wanted to say that I added this for... Is that all I added it for, to determine current or other? But if that was the case, why would I add it to okay, because why did I add that? I'm pretty sure that I added that for retrieving lost data in the case of a disconnect, so that current client receive. What does it say after this? Did I put a note? We need the ID to assign current or other string later on for dir check arg assignment. Okay. Okay, because yeah, that's right. Because if the length of the received caltuplus, that's a separate, and like that's a separate ordeal. So we'd say Freddy. Yeah, yeah. We have to add it, so because it's a separate process, so it needs it to reference that. Okay. So that's a valid thing. I remember now. All right. So lastly, I wanted to add this, which it's kind of confusing having the double comment. I feel like I should put the, yeah, I feel like I should do it like that. That's going to be the line that's being replaced with the double, and well, actually, from now on, we'll give it like some room to breathe, so we know what we're dealing with as far as what's being changed. So this is going to be, yeah, this will be our format. We'll separate them a little bit, and we'll separate each section. The double pound is being replaced, and the single pound is the replacement. So this will have the not only receive change attribute list. Well, wait, we don't have the. Oh yeah, we added the received data ID because we assigned it just a second ago in terms of right before this. So do we put, I guess we'd put it after, like it doesn't, well no, it's already gonna be there. Okay, yeah, I'm an idiot. So 2 0 is gonna be the timestamp. This is for receiving. So we're in the new system with the counter, it's gonna be timestamp, dir string, add our name, and then data, but then we're gonna have 2.4, which is gonna be do some ghetto shit right here. We'll just put 2.4 is gonna be C1, and what do we call it so that the name's the same? C1 change apply counter. We could just call it C1 apply counter. Yeah, just C1 apply counter, and then C2 apply counter. Yay. Yay. Alright, I love it. This is good. I don't like when my files are out of order though. So let's go over yonder and C1 apply counter, and then we're gonna have tube 5, which is gonna be C2 apply counter, and that's good. Okay, so this also is gonna be changed, so we'll double comment this out, and we'll always put the replacement above. So, and we'll also give it some room to breathe. So we'll put we just copy this, but the difference is going to be pretty much elements time type string, outer name, data, and then it's going to be C1 apply counter. God, I'm like, I just have doubts about this, but I'm pretty sure, dude. Pretty sure I figured that out. Be pissed if it's like that it doesn't actually work, because I'm so sick of this. Not sick of it. I'm tired of this project. I'm so ready to be done. Not sick of it. I am tired of it. Okay. So for tube and receive, change the list. Check this elements timestamp. So, tube by counter. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So I am. I'll actually go a little further because I've been off. Like, I haven't worked on the project a lot, and I'm actually not sick of it at this point. I feel like I can go a little bit more. I'm gonna take a little break though, and I'll come back and try to knock out like another, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes before I call it quits. So yeah, if you see our painting in the background, me and the kids did that yesterday. That's Zeta's portion. It's actually a big cardboard for this desk I got in that I'm using right now. It's a pretty nice desk, but anyway, it's we made this painting and using the box that it came in. Cardboard's actually like really good for like a canvas. So it's like 4 foot across. We divided it in 3 sections. That's Zeta's section. That's Zeta's section, and then Kyron's section is down lower, but it's you know, it's Kyron's section, if you can see, is down lower, and then me and Diddy's section is at the bottom. It's sideways though, so you can't really see, but it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Zeta's is really awesome. Me and Diddy's was alright. Kyron's, he's still, you know, he's only 4, so he's still learning how to paint. You know, he's not mastered the art of painting yet. He did good. I should have helped him. I just like worked on Diddy's side. Alright, yeah, I'm gonna go take a break. I'll be back. Okay. So here to deal. We're back. Me, myself, and we're all back, and I am gonna go a little bit more. All right, so let's do this, bro. Okay, so now we have like thoroughly mapped out exactly the things that we're gonna implement. So we're not gonna do the lazy option. We're okay. Do not send junk data. Well, hold up, brother. Is like is it junk data? That's the question. I kind of just assumed that, but like yeah, from the perspective of P1 game, they have no, or P1 client 1 rather, there's no concern for client 2 or P2 games progression text, because obviously that's something that you also want to be private. You don't want them to know, like, you know, well, it's not private per se, it's just like the dialogue is for them. So I think we should keep it like that. I mean, I don't think we should send that data. Like, it's junk. And there's all kind of stuff that derives from that, like selected choice. That also is a string. We don't need to send that. Like, let's just go up here and so choose multiple cards. No reason to send that. Like that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter to them. Click card active, doesn't matter. Enter continue text active. Game state. Well, game state. Do we need game state? I thought we used mirror game state thing. Did we nix that? No, we didn't nix it. Game state, let's see. Okay. So the question for that one is, does client like need game state? Game object game state not in. Okay, so this is still for receive. So like this is not important as far as like in terms of yeah, it's not gonna be worried about Okay, well actually we do check game object, other game objects. But then we say game object not in deck adder equals, hold up. This is for skeleton deck. So for whenever we're trying to send the deck over, if other client bool is equal to true, game object equals other game, okay? And then we say game object, if game object that game state is not in none winning other player the draw. And actually, I don't think that this is correct. I think we would always check in terms of current game right here. Because if game state is not in none, waiting other players draw one. Because it's gonna display on the current game. So like we want it to deck adder is not equal to party play face of discard, adder uptick equals deck master deck, discard pile. Option you can receive data at 0. Okay. Card equals receive data card. Okay, yeah, so this is for visually represented card modifications. So we want to reference the current game, which is the game it's going to be drawn from perspective. So I don't think we would do this assignment here. It would always be, the game object would always be current game here. I'm like almost certain. Isn't that true? Pretty sure. Wait a second though, we passed the game ID here, and game ID is used for determining which game to call draw window from. Is that right? Or no, that's because of card movement, right? I'm pretty sure that this is associated with card movement. So let me put, I'll put a note here. Yeah. And then this part right here, where is it? The game ID int. This game ID int. Let's read this. Current game ID used for calling draw window main, thus it is always current, not other, even when dealing with other client data. Okay, so it's always current, even when dealing with other client data. So it whenever we call draw window main, like when exactly is that used? I remember working with this a lot, obviously, and implementing this, but I can't remember exactly why. This is the copy version. Okay. Alright. I see the logic, man. Get to the point. So game ID int non-occurrence, no. Game ID int equals none. Yeah. Okay, wait, hold up. This is it. Card movement self-located to draw to game ID int equals none. Okay. If game ID int is equal to none. Okay, so yeah, this is what determines which Avada Kedavra. No, you fucking didn't. You damn you. Damn. He did it, bro. So then we say game. Okay, so I need to look for game first. Game. Eventually we call draw window main. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's why that's used. Alright. That's fine. I just wanted to check that. Projects getting pretty big. I forget certain things over time. You have to remind yourself when you see them, because it could have been a bug or whatever. But that is not what I was looking at. Okay, here it is. Alright, right here. Okay, cool. Alright, so yeah, that's fine. What was the original reason I was looking here? Okay, because of game state. Damn. I'm a distracted mother. I'm a distracted dude, my dude. I'm a distracted dude, bro. How do you game state? No, we've been through this, bro. We've been through this. Been through that. Yeah, and we put. Okay, that's where we left off. All right. I was trying to see, like, does client need game state? Yeah, see, and we properly reference current game here because, like, we could just reference current game. Well, but that's for send. But still, receive, I would say, is we'd still do current game. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we don't need it. Yep, we don't need it, dude. Okay, so we don't need that. So moving on. Now we're gonna go back to game and okay, input text final. Don't need it. Motor position active. Don't need it. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Ground in winter sound boolean. Well, that's a sound boolean, so like that's only meant for its associated game like client anyway. So selected choice. That doesn't matter. Skeleton clickable card list. Skeleton clickable card list. No, we don't worry about like what they're able to click. That's for them to know and for you to find out, bro. Skeleton click card's list, and then text input active. I mean, you could say you would want to know their clicked card. I'm not worried about it. That's fine. Like yeah, it doesn't need to be highlighted, whatever. Okay, so we're done with that. So yeah, game is not necessary for the other. None of the transferred game attributes are necessary. And I'll put this as a note. 6324. None game adders other client perspective. From the perspective of other client, none of the transferred game adders are necessary. Do not send them. It's wasted data. It's wasted effort. I'll put verified that. Yeah. Okay. Moving on.
You're more likely to know. Time will come to see just how much.
Okay, I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and call it quits. It's good progress overall. Where exactly would I say like where we left off though? I would say let's client refactor. We need to. I guess I would say the next step would be to implement the proper data change apply counter. So here need to change below to be C1. What do we call it? C1 apply counter. C1, C2 apply counter. Need to create logic here to update one or both depending on whether or not adder name is game adder. Verified game adders do not need to be transferred in terms of other client, so they will be filtered out of changed attribute list for other client send after current client send. And then they don't need to be transferred in terms of other clients, so they will be filtered out of changed attribute list. Yeah, I need to create it. Yeah, and then I'll know where to go from there. So we just put stopped here, 6/3/24. We don't have to put the time. Stopped here. And we don't need 6. We just do 1. 6 is for refactor. Well, 6 is like for a caution comment rather. This is more of a like general. So 56, line 56 and change attribute list. 56. Stopped at line number 56 in. All right, and I don't need to add that here. Sure to work it. Yeah, I'll leave that just to remember. So we stopped at 5. No, we'll just say 5:20, and that's 3 hours. So that's cool. 2:10 to 5:20. We'll say 5:15. And we did continued brainstorm, outline, implementation of apply order integrity issue. And we specifically determined to use 2 counters, 1 for each client. Created outline or finished outline for implementation, and then began compared various options. Then we began implementation. Roughly, I would say about 20% is done, 20% finished. Okay, and so now we're going to go ahead and make sure we're in the correct project directory, which we are, and we're going to check our branch. We're going to do git branch, and we are in secondary, so that's correct. Now we're going to do git add, and we're going to add everything. LF, it can be ignored, don't worry about that. Git commit, git commit, can I type or spell? I don't know. sometimes. Whiffed it. Did something wrong. Try this again. Git commit m. There we go. And no apostrophes. Look at that. Cool. 6 files changed, 95 insertions, 56 deletions. Cool. So that's good. I'm going to git push Canasta secondary. And there we go. Alright, we pushed. Everything worked. Okay, now let's go ahead and close this up and create a local backup. I don't really know if we need that, but it is what it is, you know. It is what it is. Might as well have one, just in case. I don't know, like just in case GitHub just like crashes or some shit. You know, you never know. And I have a Google Drive backed up, so I'm like, I got it locally. I got it on the cloud. I got it on GitHub. You know what I'm saying? Oh, forgot to verify. So we go to text devlog. We go all the way to the bottom. 6324, and that's the date today. So now we back out of it. We change the date to reflect today, and that's it. Alright guys,